What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Mewzings podcast studio. I'm here today with Mr. Sonny Chargualaf, coming to us all the way from Guam.
Hey,
How
how's
you
it
doing
going?
today, brother?
Doing good, doing good. Thank you for having me. I've only done one other podcast, so I appreciate reaching
Wow.
out and getting me on.
My pleasure. Now I have pressure on me. We got to make it a good one.
I'm sure it will be.
So, it's going to be fun, man. You can tell by my background, I'm a fun guy. Too much
Yeah,
comic book stuff all around me. And
yeah.
if you look under this arm, we got the child,
I see Grogu down there.
Boba Fett's helmet. Yeah. Too much room, too much room is occupied in here. So now stuff's ending up on the floor. I think it's interesting. I was talking to several of the people I've had on that a lot of us kind of all have this martial arts connection and
Right.
and art and artwork.
Mhm.
And I know that you have one of the most awesome Instagram
Thank
handles,
you.
Heroesandheadkicks.
Yeah, thanks.
How did that all come about?
Well, I've been involved in martial arts since the 80s. I believe we're close to the same age. So, grew up in the 80s and 90s, and I was involved in Taekwondo initially here on Guam. Way back in the 80s, there was Taekwondo, karate. I believe Kung Fu and like boxing wasn't really a big thing. MMA, of course, Jiu-Jitsu was not a huge thing way back then. But I started in Taekwondo, and I've been training pretty consistently ever since the 80s. So um, at the same time, I was reading comics, I was drawing. So the tag Heroes and Head Kicks kind of comes from the two passions that I have with martial arts and drawing comics. So yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I remember back when I was right around that same time period you're talking. I was born in 77. So when were you born?
I was born in 78.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm a little bit older than you,
Mm-hmm.
but just not by a lot.
Not
But
by a
yeah, we
lot.
came up during that same time period. And for me, it was karate was the big thing, like you said, and a lot of taekwondo and
Right.
everything, and a little bit of kung fu, I think was still, carrying over from the popularity of kung fu in the 70s with all the movies and everything. So like I came up watching all of the martial arts movies and stuff, and like would beg my parents to let me train. And I remember it wasn't until the first Karate Kid movie came out and they saw kind of like this, anti-bullying and all of
Right.
this could be helpful for him. And
Yeah.
I was finally able to convince them to let me start karate. So that was kind of my journey. But same as with you, like the comics and stuff were there from a pretty early time. Before I got into comics, it was more like the cartoons, coming up on Transformers,
Right.
Thundercats, Voltron, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think always having that kind of like creative, looking for that creative outlet, looking to those inspiring creative things along with the martial arts has always been there. So do you find that a lot of other creative people that are in martial arts? I was talking with Ron Garney the other day about this. Like, I just noticed so many of us who are into artwork and these different things also seem drawn to martial arts, and we were trying to see, is it like how our brains are wired, or why is that?
I believe it's I think the discipline and the structure of martial arts, training, recovering, trying to be analytical with like technical stuff, like footwork, or if you're doing jujitsu, a specific position. I think all of those are very transferable to how we approach art. Like there's technical stuff that we have to learn, and then there's also like self-expression that kind of comes into it that makes us more individualized. Like I'm sure you have your own style of jujitsu where you're more maybe, you prefer top position or something, versus somebody who's like longer and has longer limbs and may prefer like bottom position. Same thing for
I'm
me.
kind of an I'm kind of an anomaly.
Mhm.
I'm a big guy that identifies as a little person.
Oh, very cool. That's always
So
cool
I'm
though.
6'5". I'm 6'5" and 310 pounds, but I can do the splits and do all the crazy guard stuff and
Wow.
the stuff that's normally attributed to the little guys.
Right.
But normally, yes, normally what you'd say, you definitely, regardless, you gravitate towards a certain style most of the times. Most people
Right.
tend to lean one way or the other depending on body type and these
Correct.
types of things.
Yeah, with striking, it's like you're either the bull or the matador, kind of like Ali versus Frazier, where you're kind of like a big, kind of hulking kind of guy coming in and throwing bombs
Yeah.
versus Ali's kind of better footwork and staying on the outside. So, yeah, definitely preferences, and I think that the martial arts connection to art and drawing and comics and all that stuff is another aspect for me. Is that I always saw guys like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris as like a martial arts superhero. It was kind of like that was my kind of way in from martial arts to drawing comics and just appreciating comics and superheroes that way.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You broke it down really well. Like when you think about it like that, it does make sense why it appeals to us and kind of why all these different hobbies and things cross over. Um, Speaking of hobbies, like when did your artwork go from being a hobby to more of a profession? Kind of how did you get your start? When did you break in? And what type of work do you tend to do? Do you do more like graphic design type work, more concept art, or
Mhm.
have you dabbled in a little bit of everything with your artwork?
Well,
There's a lot of questions.
yeah.
That's like a triple whammy right there.
Yeah, yeah. I'll try to tackle each one, but I'm kind of like I try to identify myself and try to kind of still steer towards more comic style art, and that's really my overall goal is to be a comic illustrator, whether it's doing covers or like currently I'm working on a 3-issue comic series. And that's
Oh,
really what,
sweet.
yeah, I really want to focus on that. And it's a Guam story. I'm working with like a full team. I'm working with James Andrew Clark, who's been published by Dark Horse, colorist named Edgar Arce, and a letterer called his name is Thomas Moore. So all these guys have more experience than I do, but I identify myself as a comic book illustrator first and foremost, and then there's other things that I do just to take on clients and get commissions done. And it may not be comic art, but it's my style. So that's kind of where I lean.
Gotcha. And then as far as when you got your start in all of this, like obviously you were talking about how you had a love of comics at a young age, and
Mhm.
did you kind of know right away that that was the path you wanted to start following?
Yes, my goal actually in high school was to leave Guam and possibly go to New York and try to make it as a comic artist. But Guam doesn't really have. I mean, there's one I mean, two. There's two colleges. One is a university. One's more like a community college. So none of those, neither of those has a comic sequential art path. Everything that I learned, everything that I do, I had to learn on my own. So it was just a lot of reading comics, absorbing all of that content, and trying to dissect it, break it down, and figure out how to do it. Later, when like the internet kind of came up, I just did a lot of research and just try to learn it on my own. So it's really, there's nothing here in Guam in terms of like comic creation, that there's no industry here. There's no educational programs. There's a very small community. There's maybe 4 or 5 people from the island. Tony is one of those people that do comic style art, illustration, pop art, stuff like that. So it's a very small community, and it's a little harder to get things done here, but it's not impossible. So yeah, when I
Yeah.
initially wanted to do comic art, I was in high school, and that's really what I wanted to do.
Well, I think no time like the present for that to start changing, and I think if we're positioned in a perfect world to be able to do comics from anywhere,
Hey,
you know, it's kind of all the resources are there now. You don't necessarily have to be in a place like, I know what you're saying about coming up and like trying to learn on your own, because we didn't have all these resources
right,
like YouTube and everything.
right.
I mean, you could go on David Finch's channel and sit there for
Which I've
50
done.
hours
I've
and
done
not,
that. Yeah,
yeah, and not go through everything. Like I
right.
wish I had that when I was a younger artist,
Oh
because it's
yeah,
just a tremendous,
yeah.
tremendous resource.
I definitely feel like I'm a little late, and I'm sure you may possibly be experiencing, because I'm in my 40s now. So,
Yep.
um, I feel like I kind of wish that we had the resources we have now, just because I feel like I would have gotten my start, doing comics way back, but I mean, I'm trying to take advantage of what I have now, and I'm trying to do something, and I'm trying to get some projects done with comics. So
That's awesome. Now, with this project that you're doing, is this a creator-owned kind of idea that your team came up with, and then you're providing the art and everything? Are you designing some of the characters and
yeah,
everything that goes along with that?
yeah, I'm actually I'm co-writing it. The main writer, Jim Andrew Clark, he was actually nominated for an Eisner Award back in 2010. He has
Oh, wow.
an online series called The Guns of Shadow Valley. So it's free online. If you guys have time, you can check it out. But I kind of pitched the idea to him. The house that I grew up in on Guam had a strange kind of like almost like a prison in front of it that could not be removed. It was made out of metal. And I kind of drew inspiration from that. And we created a story based on that. So the story is based on Guam. It's set in 2 time periods. And I kind of just pitched the idea to Jim. I went to San Diego Comic-Con in 2018. This was actually me and my wife's honeymoon. And we got married just a few weeks prior to Comic-Con. And then we attended, and I just pitched the idea to Jim, my co-writer. And I'd never met him before. I just went up to him and I said, here's a story idea. If you want to try to jump in on it, get a hold of me. And we talked, and this is how it worked out. So
That's amazing. I find that's something really special, I think, that exists in, you see it in comics, and I see it in jiu-jitsu and a few other things. Well, now I'm big into arm wrestling, as you've probably seen on
I've seen your
my
IG.
Instagram, but like having this access to these people that would be like sometimes like the equivalent of a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant, and you actually get to interact with them, and they're like really cool and down to earth, and you can go up and share ideas, and look at you just came up to them and made your pitch, and next thing you know, now you guys are co-writing this together.
Yeah, we're working on a project together. So yeah, I mean, I agree with martial arts in general, and also creatives, whether it's like, comic artists or, anything in the arts. I feel like the gap between, like, if you take like movie stars, for example, if you get like a low level actor and like Tom Cruise, for example, it's probably not going to work out the same as, what we experience at cons and stuff like that, where we could just come up to somebody, talk to them, and go back and forth about the job and the career and everything, and learn a little bit. So yeah, I think we're a little lucky in that sense.
Are you guys gonna do like a Kickstarter type of thing for it, or is this something you're just strictly rolling out on your own and gonna get published somewhere? How you handling all of that?
Yeah, so we're we're gonna self-publish. We're doing everything. It's issue 1 it's a 3-issue thing. Issue 1 is pretty much done. I believe we're waiting on my part is done. The coloring's done. I can send you a little bit of sample.
I hope you do.
Yeah, I'll send you something soon. But it's a very very self-contained story, and it's pretty much where we're just kind of doing it I'm not sure. I don't think we're going to be doing a Kickstarter. It's just pretty much funded on our own, and everything's taken care of by us.
Very cool. So a passion project, and then, get some eyes on it, and who knows, maybe we'll be able to get some more mainstream exposure and
that would be
get
cool.
Things rocking and rolling.
Yeah, that would be cool.
The Guam comic art community on the map even more. That would be amazing.
Awesome. Yeah.
Do you who do you remember kind of being your first major influence as far as comic art, as far as the books you were looking at? Like, I know I find it funny. It seems like pretty stereotypically most of us who are into drawing or into, who would consider ourselves like aspiring artists, like we usually look at the books and we're not too worried about the story. We're like going in there and buying books based off of
how it looks,
what we like, and
how pretty
how it looks,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what were some of your early inspirations and artists that you encountered when you were first into comics?
For me, because I grew up reading a lot of X-Men, that was my main title that I read. Arthur Adams was one of he's definitely my favorite comic artist. Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, Alan Davis, who else? John Byrne. I loved his run on the X-Men. There's a guy named Dave Cockrum who created some of the X-Men, like Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Interesting fact
very
about
underrated too. Like, I'm very surprised that he's not more spoken about than he is,
Yeah. Interesting thing about Dave Cockrum is that he actually lived on Guam for a little bit. And I don't know how many people know about this, but Nightcrawler, the character, was created on Guam during a typhoon. So
wow, that's a deep cut. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I try to tell my students all about that, because there's no real connection to big comic characters, but this is one that we can talk about and have a connection to Guam. So
that's awesome, man. You named a lot of the people who I think, coming up in the time that we were, those were a lot of the very inspiring artists. And for me, it was always like big time with Jim Lee.
Right.
Like I remember like really loving his X-Men work, like even before he had the individual series that he did, like the record-breaking sales on and all of that. Like looking at his stuff on Uncanny X-Men and just being a kind of a fan of that style and the kind of the guys that branched off and went to Image. Were you a big Image fan when Image launched and everything?
Yeah, I was. I collected most of the titles when they launched it. Savage Dragon, I love Savage Dragon. The Pit, I love the Pit.
Yeah, Pit, Dale Keown.
Yeah, he did really good work on the Hulk, and that's kind of what brought me over to the Pit. I mean, it was pretty similar character design wise, just missing a nose and all the chains and everything. But huge, muscly character, and that was a good style for Dale to get into. So yeah, I mean,
it was kind of funny how like all of those guys kind of gravitated and created their creator-owned stuff was all very similar to what they were previously on.
Right. Yeah. Wildcats. For the most part. All of that.
Wildcats was like another team book. And
right.
I guess with Dragon, though, Dragon was pretty unique. And that's a character that Larson had created and actually had, published in Megaton books and stuff way back.
Okay. Yeah.
Back in the day.
I think I remember then. Yeah.
Yeah. He had like a little tiny fin. He looked a little bit different, but he had that character around for a long time. And then I guess, Todd had Spawn, like when he was in high school, he had drawn Spawn and kind of came up with some of the initial ideas for that. But yeah, definitely, Jim definitely went to kind of another X-Men-ish type of book and everything. But in Keown, like, I think it's cool though. I think sometimes you kind of have to go with what you're the best at.
Right.
Like Jim's always been really good at drawing those team books and things and really giving all the characters their own unique individual looks, and Dale with the gigantic muscular brute type of
Yeah.
characters is just natural for him to go to Pitt. So
Right.
yeah, I really wish like Dale would get back on some regular work. I think that's something that everybody, like, I heard he was doing some kind of project here
Hmm.
that he's supposed to have coming out, and I heard rumors of maybe like an artist edition of Pitt, because I think he still owns like pretty much all the original pages
I
of
see.
Pitt.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
man,
I
that would be a
haven't
dream.
really, I haven't really seen anything from him lately. Now that
Yeah.
you bring it up, I can't think of anything he's done lately. So yeah, that would
Yeah,
be cool.
he did some covers for Marvel here and there. Um, and he's been showing up here and there on some podcasts and things. And I know he's doing some, I think there's some kind of Kickstarter project, like book he's helping with or something. So, but, there's been rumors like swirling that he's going to bring Pitt back or do some kind of Pitt related, like a crowdfunded thing or something. So
Oh, very cool.
fingers crossed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. I would love to see more of that.
So these days, a lot of artists are working digitally. Like I have my tablet monitor here next to me. Like,
Hmm.
are you somebody that works in that digital realm? Do you do a hybrid process? What's your preference?
Yeah, I'm almost exclusively all digital now. I use Procreate. I don't know what program you're using. Are you using Procreate?
I use Procreate on the iPad, and I also have Clip Studio on there. I kind of jump back and forth. I have things I like about each of them
Hmm.
independently. You know, I like certain things in Procreate a little better, and certain things in Clip Studio. So I kind of hop back and forth.
I see. Yeah, I used to use the older version of Clip Studio. It used to be called Manga Studio.
Yep.
Yeah, so I used to use that. That was my very first introduction to digital tools. This was way back in like 2012, 2013. And then my wife got me as a wedding gift an iPad Pro with Procreate, and I just started playing with it, and it was just just the interface was just agreeable to me and my style, and that's pretty much what I
Yeah.
use now. So yeah.
Yeah, Procreate is like I think a very easy transition because it's almost like Photoshop,
Hmm.
but with more, you know, focus on the art tools
Right.
and more focus on the drawing tools.
Hmm.
So it's something familiar to us. So yeah, Clip Studio now can be pretty daunting. Like it's hard to find like the simplest thing. You could like find it right away before. Now you have to go through all these menus and
Right. Yeah, I was gonna
like
say the original version, the Manga Studio version, I was used to, and I liked it a lot. But when they updated it to Clip Studio, the interface changed, and it
yeah.
was kind of intimidating. So I wasn't doing as much on that as I was on the older version. And then when Procreate came around, I just said, okay, this is a better fit for me.
What was some of your early work in the industry, like your first kind of published projects and things that you did?
My very first comic work. I'm not sure if you know a guy. He's a lettering guy, a letterer named Russ Wooten. He did some. He's done a
Yeah,
lot of
I've
stuff.
heard that.
Yeah, Russ.
Yeah, I've heard his name. Yeah.
Yeah, he worked on the Walking Dead comic. He was doing the lettering for it. He's done a lot of stuff.
Yep.
But Russ put together a Kickstarter a few years ago. I think it was 2015, I believe. And it was a horror anthology called The Dark Reaches. It was kickstarted. She approached a friend of mine from Hawaii who was involved in the MMA scene. He did photography back then. His name is Eddie. I think his Instagram is King Eddie. But he wrote a short story, a short horror story, and he reached out to me to illustrate it. We had talked before I did any comic work way back in 2010. I was cornering two fighters from Guam in Hawaii. Two of my fighters, my kickboxing students, we flew out to Hawaii, we fought out there, and we had talked. He was taking pictures of the event, and Max Holloway actually fought in that event
Oh,
way back
amazing.
before when he was super young. Um,
Yeah.
so that was a connection with me and Eddie, and I was approached to illustrate, and I did one story. Then Russ came back and asked me to do another story on that anthology. So that was way back in 2015. It was funded successfully, and it's a long process for the second volume to come out, but we're kind of working on that as well.
Oh, nice. So you got your fingers in a little bit of everything right now, working on this new project, trying to rekindle some old projects.
Right.
Like you got that creativity trapped inside you. It's got to get out, right?
Yeah, I feel like I said earlier, I feel like I'm a little late, so I'm trying to make up for lost time. So trying to get some stuff done. Yeah.
Now, are you still teaching martial arts at all?
I was coaching actively from 2014-ish to, I'm sorry, 2004 to, about 2016. And, around that time, on Guam, the fight promotions were kind of dying out. There was only one major MMA promotion here on Guam, and they kind of slowed down and then eventually just stopped altogether. So at the same time, some of my students were kind of thinking about leaving, getting to the age where they wanted to do like the military or to move off and do their own thing. And I had to it kind of broke my heart a little bit because I didn't want to stop. We had a small dedicated group of guys that competed and trained together for over a decade. But I just felt like I owed it to myself to kind of just put that to the side and just focus mainly on drawing and trying to do projects for myself. Yeah. And ever since 2015, 2016 to now, I've been really focusing on doing art. But I still train. I'm not sure if you know John Tuck. He fought in the UFC. He opened a gym recently, and I jump in to help out every once in a while with their striking. Yeah, so I stay involved.
Yep, I know that name for sure. Yeah, I remember when he was fighting and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're staying active with that. I mean, obviously, like art is kind of a stationary venture.
Yeah.
Like, so it's good to have something that gets us up and moving around.
Yeah. Plus I'm getting older, man. So like I can't just sit down and draw as much as I want to. I need to, I need to move. I need to stay active, and it's just better for me. So.
Isn't that funny how sitting too long becomes a thing? Like, how'd you hurt your back? Oh, I was sitting for too long.
Yeah, I just went to the chiropractor a couple of days ago because I had a upper back issue, and that's from being crouched over so much at work and also for drawing too. So, yeah.
I just went this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maintenance, you got to get that tune up.
Right.
Something I haven't really delved into on here that I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, and I've touched on it a little bit briefly with a couple of the other artists, but, the whole kind of AI, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes for the people just listening on the audio version, AI art thing that's going on. Obviously, it's something that affects many professional artists in particular, and pretty much anybody who's putting anything creative online. I don't know if you saw this thing recently. I'm sure you did, but you see what Instagram is doing with how they're basically going to be able to use any artwork that you put up to influence their AI.
Yeah, I do not agree with that at all. Very frustrating, and just it doesn't seem like it should be legal. Yeah, I just don't agree with it. A little concerning with my art because I have had some of my illustrations stolen, like just outright stolen. So AI is it's a very frustrating new development, and it's. I guess for non-artists, it seems like a cool thing, and it seems like a big step in technology, and it seems amazing, but to artists, to people who, spend years and years and years honing a craft and getting better at drawing, it's just to have that taken away from you and stolen. I've seen some AI, like you did, the quote unquote artists, just straight up copy, existing artwork and take credit for it. And I've seen someone win an award for just pretty much stealing an illustration and then flipping it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
very frustrating. And I'm not a fan at all. So.
Well, something that just happened recently, it's been several months now, but I entered that, Todd McFarlane did the Spawn.
Yeah, I did the
same cover contest, right? And one of the winners was AI art.
No,
it got outed.
I did not.
Yeah,
I didn't even know.
They had explicitly said no AI art. That was in the rules of the contest. And then people, outed the guy, and he tried to deny it. He says, "Oh, these other entries I did, those were AI, but the one that won wasn't."
Man.
And then somebody found his account on the AI generator and found those images and like, "Oh, really? Like they're right here under your account, the ones you say you actually painted."
Horrible. I did not know about that. I'm gonna have to research that and read up on that. That's
and it kind of got buried. So Todd never, to my knowledge, came out and like made a statement about it or anything, and they haven't like used those covers yet. Of the people that won. But it was something where like literally after that, like Todd could not post something without people commenting, "Is this AI?"
Yeah, that's understandable. That's not a good look at all for an artist to kind of, and that's the danger, is that it's some of these AI, outputs are pretty, believable, and it's just, but the way they're trained on other people's art is what I really don't agree with.
Yeah, and some people, they like use it as like a part of a hybrid process. So they'll use AI for a piece, but then they'll go in and like photo bash and actually do a little bit of work on it in Photoshop that you could tend to say is art. Like they're being creative and they're using filters and doing different things, but ultimately creating something from scratch that's an original concept and seeing it to fruition, like it's taking a lot of these intermediary steps out of place that normally, like those of us who are into art have been like practicing for a very long time to acquire those skill sets and to be able to do those things. So
it's if you look at creating art, like how you train in jiu-jitsu or kickboxing or MMA or whatever style, there's like it has to be a lifestyle, in my opinion. Like you have to do it whether you're going to be rich and famous or if you're just going to do it as a hobby. You just do it every day. That's kind of how I approach martial arts and how I approach art and creating. It's more like a lifestyle than I'm going to be doing this till I can't draw anymore. Physically, I can't draw anymore. And I feel like that's the best way to do it. And I feel like AI artists are kind of like skipping the line. They're ignoring all the hard work in the process and the lifestyle aspect of it. And they're just trying to jump to a product that they can output and show off and sell maybe. And I think it's a not honest way of creating art. So, and to top it off, on top of that, there's the aspect of stealing other people's work. And it's just, I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, and the whole labeling themselves as artists, AI artists, when literally they're typing in prompts.
Right.
You're typing in words. I mean, that'd be like me in going and putting a microwave dinner and then cooking it in the microwave and calling myself a sous chef.
Right. I've heard someone say that it's like getting a slice of pizza from Pizza Hut, someone getting a slice of pizza from Domino's, other pizza joints, and putting it together and saying you're the chef, you're this high level chef. And it's just
exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy that, someone could get some pride and some, you know, bragging about, something that was so simple to do. And on top of that, stealing from other people. It's just, yeah, it's just something I don't agree with.
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat on that. I think, unfortunately, it kind of seems like the genie's out of the bottle and it's not something that's going to go away. So I think, hopefully some regulations or something come into play as far as, not taking artists' artwork without their permission and churning it into these things. And because you can see on some of them, like, you know who the artist Art Germ is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like a lot of the early AI stuff, like, was heavily, you could tell they fed a lot of his work into it.
With like dramatic lighting and all of that.
And then there's a lot of stuff in the early stuff that looked a ton like Alex Ross's stuff,
Right.
like that paint, the style of Alex Ross's paintings. And then, there was another one too, and it was like very apparent. And the one that really got me, and I know upset a lot of people, was shortly after Kim Jong-gi had passed. They went and fed like a ton of his work into one of them, and then it was spitting out new, quote unquote, new Kim Jong-gi pieces, that looked like, if you weren't somebody who knew like his style very well, they were like passable. So yeah, I think it's just going to be one of these things that people need to keep speaking up. And like with this Instagram thing, it's really weird though. They're making it like very hard to opt out. Well, like apparently you have to file an objection, and they can approve or deny your objection request, is what I heard.
Yeah. My wife has been sending me these reels on like tutorials on how to opt out, but I was hearing that that's not possible in the US. Like there's no way to do it.
From what I've heard is there, you can go into the settings and there's like a file objection thing, and it's like this whole process. And in it says they have the right to like deny your request, objecting them from being able to use the things that you're putting in the account. Yeah,
that's pretty crazy. I don't know if you've noticed that I slowed down on posting on Instagram. And this is prior to, the AI thing. But it's just like, I was a little more, kind of scared to post just because I've had a history of people stealing my stuff. So, with the whole AI thing and people using your art to train, the algorithm, I'm a little more reluctant to post stuff. And, it sucks because like, that's where I get most of my interaction. We met through Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's frustrating to kind of have to, handcuff yourself because of, somebody potentially stealing your thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I already know of several, pro artists here in the US that have, or, in this part of the world, who have stopped, either stopped posting on Instagram, stopped posting any of their art, or have just altogether posted that they're just leaving Instagram altogether.
Yeah, I've seen a few.
And apparently, I guess there's some other platform that just popped up that's more directed towards artists. That's kind of a Instagram type of thing that a lot of the pro artists I know are switching over to, that supposedly doesn't have any kind of AI implications along with it. So
yeah, I saw that recently. See where
things go.
Yeah, I saw that recently. I think it was just like yesterday. I saw a bunch of artists saying, follow me on, I forget what the new app is called.
It's like Sarah, like CERA or something like that. I saw Richard Friend posted it.
Okay.
He's another invaluable resource on talking YouTube channels with like people posting great art stuff.
Yeah, I think I may have bought like a couple of his brushes.
Yeah, it's called Kara, CARA is the name of the thing he said he's on.
Okay.
Yeah, so supposedly it's more like directed towards artists and kind of like similar to Instagram, but solely focused on artists. So maybe that might be a good alternative for some of the artists that are listening who are kind of uncomfortable with that idea of,
Right.
getting their work on there and potentially having it fed into the Skynet system.
Yeah, that's
Well, switching gears a little bit on you, back to martial arts. And I know you mentioned you started in Taekwondo, but and we're talking more towards modern times now. You keep mentioning kickboxing.
Mhm.
So was that kind of like something that you did Taekwondo for a while? You got intrigued by other stand-up styles and made that switch?
Yeah. So yeah, I started, like I said earlier, I started in '86 with Taekwondo. Actively competed. I mean, in local tournaments, for a long time. Uh, there was an international tournament called the South Pacific Games, and I had fought twice in it. First time was in Tahiti. We flew out. Guam had a team. We flew out to Tahiti in '95. I was like 17 or 18. Uh, Fought in Tahiti. I got silver in that one. Then in '99, it's held every 4 years. In '99, I fought on Guam. It was held on Guam, the same event. Fought in that one. I got my nose smashed. I lost the gold medal fight. So my nose was pretty messed up. At that point in my life, I was like maybe 21 or 22, something like that, 20 maybe. And I was kind of like getting a little tired and more interested in more, not violent, but like more, less sport style martial arts. So I started looking at like MMA, started getting interested in jiu-jitsu and different styles. So I stopped with Taekwondo pretty much altogether at that point. And I started learning how to box. There was it was called the Guam Amateur Boxing Federation. And I stopped everything with Taekwondo and I would just go there, get beat down for, for a few months and had to like force myself to change my style drastically to kind of learn how to box. And, so from there I started developing kickboxing and yeah, I started, learning how to do it. I would buy like instructionals from like Rob Kamen, Ernesto Hughes,
Oh yeah.
all those guys and try to like pick apart styles and just kind of treat it like as a project and try to like really learn how to do things from just breaking it down. And then got into the ring and started sparring with people. Again, getting pieced up every now and then. But learning how to do it. And, I got to the point where I felt like, okay, I think I can compete. And I did a few kickboxing matches, here on Guam and in a neighboring island. And this was maybe like 10 years ago was my last fight.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, you gotta, you it's like that bad baptism by fire, right? Like you
Yeah.
started getting in the ring and kind of
Yeah.
learning and it's definitely an experience. I remember, it's very different, like being in a style that has a sideways type of stance, like
Right.
like Taekwondo or
Right.
karate. I remember trying to, I did karate and then I switched to BJJ. And then for a while I was doing BJJ, one of my students was a really good Muay Thai guy. So
Mhm.
we introduced a Muay Thai class and that is a very different stance than we're used to in
Right.
karate or Taekwondo.
more squared up and yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, more forward,
Mhm.
like definitely a learning curve there, right?
Right.
So, when with this crossover between martial arts and art, like that learning process, like obviously you were talking about how when we use this term self-taught, like I was talking to one of the artists the other day and he said, it's funny we say self-taught, but really like we're learning from these resources and things that
Mhm.
are people who came before us and are kind of like laying the groundwork and we're pulling from that instructional book or, that Bridgman book or
Mhm.
whatever it may be
Right.
and applying these resources to help us teach ourselves. But, for you in that process, like Were there some resources, some art books and things that you found very helpful? Did you find ones that resonated with you more than others, or were you more of a kind of look at a comic, copy the poses, try to figure out the anatomy? Like, what was your journey like in that regard?
Well, I was lucky because I'm an art teacher, and my, I had to go to college and take art classes. So I actually double majored, education and secondary education and also fine arts. So like the foundation was there for drawing. We went through a traditional path of learning how to draw by observation. So all of the essentials and the groundwork was laid down. It was just adjusting the realistic style that I learned in college to a more like a shorthand kind of comic style.
Gotcha. So you did have like formal art training then
Correct.
in regard to like life drawing classes
Right.
and still life and that type of thing.
Yeah, I believe Tony Dela Cruz and myself went through the same art program here on Guam. And just talking to him, I know that when he moved out to Washington, he went back to an undergraduate program and he did like another illustration type program. And that, like I said, that's not offered on Guam. It's just a very traditional watercolor charcoal kind of,
Right.
life drawing kind of, path that is the only option here at Guam. So yeah, that's what we both went through.
I'm seeing another venture for you.
Oh, that would be cool, man.
Getting some kind of
yeah,
art program
yeah,
going there,
yeah,
comic art, sequential art program.
yeah. Actually, I teach high school, so my final project for the year is teaching traditional stuff. Perspective, how to draw space accurately. Creating the illusion of space and all that stuff. But my final project is actually, to incorporate all of those things that we do throughout the school year, but put it into like a short comic story. And I try to,
Nice.
I try to show them examples. There's a few people that I from Guam that I try to show off, because I want to make the connection to my students that, comics may seem like an impossible thing from Guam, but I've done it. Tony's done stuff in kind of not a full on comic, but he's done things that are related to comics. So I show off like Tony's work. I show off my work. There's another guy named, from Guam. His name is, Jesse Mesatoviz, and I think he works for Marvel. He's like
Cool.
he's a previous guy. And both Tony and Jesse, I've spoken to online, from way back just to kind of get tips and kind of, ask them questions on how should I do this. And I've always like kind of reached out to them and I really appreciate them kind of opening up to me and just giving me some tips here and there. So yeah, those are two guys that are super cool. And yeah, they're always, they've always been, supportive of whenever I have like, a question for them. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. It's cool how you were able to kind of cross it over into your class a little bit and give the students a little creativity there
Yeah.
at the end of the course
Yeah.
and getting them, maybe getting some of them inspired by the comic art style,
Yeah. Yeah. Very
That's
cool.
awesome.
It's cool to show them that, Guam's a very small island. There are a lot of talented people, very talented artists here. I see it year to year. I see like a few standouts, in my classroom, but there's just no direction, like in terms of like, what can I do with this, aside from just do a small business or make stickers or, sell posters.
Right.
It will be really beneficial for the island if there was like a sequential art program or like you know any kind of program that would kind of lead into the pipeline of a huge career.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, giving several different directions you could go with this skill set, and especially leveraging, you could teach them how to leverage like social media and Etsy store and all this kind of stuff to get the exposure
right.
and get themselves out there,
Mhm.
while being kind of, you know, uh, not stuck, but just being in a community that is not as easy to get
Correct.
that work out there.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
that would be hugely beneficial to, if we had something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Tony, a lot of people, they see his work and you're talking about how he has a similar training to you and everything. And he does that very like graphic design style. And he does I own so many of his prints and things, that style that Tony is known for. But then like that piece over my shoulder here on the wall for people watching, that's a Tony De La Cruz.
Yeah,
I mean, that's Wolverine.
That looks like
That's
Tony's.
a commission I had him.
Very
yeah,
cool.
That's a commission I had him do. And a lot of people don't realize that his style is he can do that too.
Mhm.
It's not just what you're seeing on those prints, Yeah. Yeah. Tony's a great guy. We'll be having him on here real soon and picking his brain. And yeah, I think you guys could definitely come up with a cool program there on Guam and not like you're not busy enough, but just putting the bug in your ear there.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've thought about. And I know there's some independent schools that are trying to do things like that, but not geared toward sequential art and making comics and stuff like that. So that's definitely something that I really would love my students to get into.
So we talked a little bit about your past, your inspirations as far as other artists when you were coming up. Who are some people, some comic artists today that you follow and look up to? I know I have it seems like every other day on Instagram, there's some new artist who I'm like, how is this person not like mega famous? Their work is amazing. Like I follow, I swear, like a new one every day that comes up and I get inspiration from. Do you have some artists on there that you really, really enjoy seeing their work pop up on your feed?
Yeah. There's he's more traditional actually. His name is Dave Wachter, Wachter. I was first exposed to his artwork. I believe it was, I'm forgetting the title of it, but the story is, okay, there it is. It's called Breath of Bones.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a war story where, some soldiers are coming into a small village and the village elder is kind of like a mystic and he has to create a golem to protect the town.
Okay.
It's a pretty badass storyline.
I just pulled up his Instagram here. This is awesome. Yeah. This Captain America piece he just posted 9 hours ago. Got a lot of like Tim Sale vibes to it.
Yeah, very traditional. A lot of ink and ink wash type stuff for the shading. And it's very different from what I do. So like I'm like super inspired by his work and I like seeing that stuff and it kind of pulls me to kind of try to do more traditional stuff because I do like that ink and ink wash style. So I played with it before and it was fun for me. He's also worked with my co-writer, Jim Andrew Carl. So he was the one that illustrated the Guns of Shadow Valley. Dave Wachter was he worked with my co-writer Jim. So really awesome stuff. And, that's an artist that I really kind of just check out his work and I just like look at it and kind of get inspired. It's very, like I said, it's very different from what I do, but yeah, I still really dig it. So.
Now, are you guys thinking with this book that you're doing, are you bring any other artists in to like do pinups or variant covers or anything like that? Or is it strictly just going to be you, or what are you thinking in that regard? Have you thought that far ahead?
We have not. As far as I'm concerned, so far it's just me, but if it was just up to me straight, I would love to get variant artists on, but yeah, it's co-owned by myself and my co-writer. So any decisions like that, we gotta talk it out and figure things out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, collaborating is a very unique thing, especially when you're all creative people. You got to make sure that everybody's as close to on the same page as possible. Like, what do you enjoy the most about that collaborative type of process?
Well, with the my current project that I'm working on, the title of the comic is called Tautamona. Tautamona is it's like kind of the ghosts and the spirits on Guam. It's a Chamorro word. Um, literally, it means like people from before. That's what it means.
Gotcha.
So like our ancient, the ghosts and everything. But the process with my co-writer on the project that we're working on is he's more experienced than I am. So like he's written a bunch of books, and he's actually been published. The Guns of Shadow Valley, that webcomic was actually published by Dark Horse Comics. They reached out to him after it was put online, and they asked him to publish with them. So he's got experience. He knows what he's doing, and he's kind of like a guide for me. He kind of steers me, my artwork, in the right direction to make it more readable for the audience. And it's a lot of work, but it's work that is eventually going to make me a better comic artist. So that's the big benefit of working with someone that's more experienced, and just getting and he's like super nice about it. He's not like demanding, and he's not, he doesn't talk down to me about it. He's just very, very open to like what I think about the process, and he gives suggestions, and gives me the reasoning behind it too, right? He kind of, I don't think his intention is to teach me, but he'll say, he'll give me reasons why the thing that I drew should be adjusted or changed, and very beneficial for me, because I'm still, even though this is like my second or third published work, I'm still very new to it. And I'm still learning, and I'm always trying to like get better. And like I said, because I don't have the proper training in sequential art, I have to learn by doing and making mistakes, and then getting better and adjusting. So very beneficial partnership with Jim.
It's great that you have somebody like that, an industry professional who's been around a while, that you can kind of lean on a little bit in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good that he's being very forthright with kind of his suggestions and things, and giving you different ideas of, how to adjust your work based on what they would be looking for in sequential art, and specifically in the comic book format.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's great. You're kind of getting to learn on the job, so to speak.
Right.
Absolutely. Is this your first time working with somebody like of his caliber?
Yeah.
As far as his experience and who he is, and
right. Yes. This is the very first time. The previous published work that I've done with the horror anthology, it was written by, the story was fine. It was good. It was a good story, but he definitely, the writer for that one, did not have the experience that Jim, my co-writer Jim, has. So definitely this is the biggest project I've worked on, and it's awesome because it's like a personal project to me. It's from Guam. It's a Guam story with Chamorro characters, and it's
nice.
it's kind of like my baby a little bit. It's something that I can try to put out to the world, and hopefully people enjoy it, and the people of Guam kind of appreciate that I'm trying to put out a Guam story.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, speaking of Chamorros, like I had to have my show you roll symbol. I found my you got to have a comic related shirt for the podcast, but I also had to have my family at Show You Roll. They're all Guam boys and girls, and we got Optimus on here with the Show You Roll symbol.
I see
it.
I see
it's hard to see. That's Optimus hiding in there.
Nice.
Yes, sir. That's when they did their collaboration with Hasbro, and they actually released officially licensed Transformer.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that they did that.
Oh yeah, it was insane. They actually did exclusive one that you could only get in person at the Hasbro booth at San Diego Comic-Con.
Wow. Have you ever been to like any like San Diego Comic-Cons? Have you been there?
I've been to San Diego once.
Okay.
I've been in, and it was on a whim. It was so crazy how it worked out. And again, we talk about these connections between comic books and martial arts and jiu-jitsu. So I actually happened to be, I want to say it was like 2014, I believe. And I was down in California to train at my instructor's jiu-jitsu school.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even realize that San Diego was that week.
Oh,
And I was down there. I'm like, oh man, I'm down here. Like I could drive to San Diego from here. And I was like, man, but I know how hard it is to get passes, like to get badges for San Diego.
Right.
Like some people buy them like a year beforehand, you know? And so I posted like in a show your old group that I was part of on Facebook. And I said, hey, anybody have a connection that could, and strangely enough, man, somebody DM'd me
Wow.
and said, yeah, I know somebody, I have a friend that works at the convention center.
Wow.
And they gave me this code, like go to this website, put this code in and you can buy your badges and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so literally like it worked.
Wow.
And I went and I got my badges. Me and this other guy that was in the show your old group, we actually met up. We'd never met in person, but we were friends through collecting show your old gis, and we met down there and we got to go to San Diego Comic-Con.
Very
It was
cool.
amazing.
What year was that?
Yeah. I want to say it was like 2014.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Yeah. My first,
pretty sure.
my first Comic-Con was in 2012. My sister lived in San Diego at the time, and she was able to get tickets for us. And yeah, we were able to experience Comic-Con for the first time there. I met Stan Lee in 2012, me and my wife.
Oh, man.
And we got a picture with Stan Lee back in 2012. Very cool. So I've been to San Diego
That's
Comic-Con 3 times.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go back. And I remember one year I tried to get because if you've gone, you know, previously, they usually give you the access to try to get in a little bit earlier to get the badges.
Yeah.
And I tried the one year, but I wasn't able to get them. I was going to try to make it so my wife and I could both go. And yeah, I struck out, and then I haven't tried since, but I'm sure I'll make my way back. I want her to get to experience it, because her and we go to like all the local ones here between Washington State and Oregon. So we'll do Rose City Comic-Con down in Oregon, and then we do the big one here in Seattle. Emerald City Comic-Con is an amazing one. If they ever offer to bring you out, man, you got to let me know, because that would be.
I'd love to, man. I mean,
yeah.
So I know Tony's talked to me about you know, that he thinks I could do well tabling at a convention in Washington, and my sister lives out there. My sister's a writer, and she
Okay.
we've actually collaborated a few times on her writing stuff, and I illustrated it. But she attends cons in Washington pretty frequently now that she stays out there. So yeah.
Very cool.
Definitely.
Does she is her stuff published? Like, what kind of writing does she do? Does she do more like writing for like novelization, or is she in the comic industry as well?
No, the bulk of it is it's more like novels and short stories and stuff like that. The one thing that we did collaborate on, we collaborated on a couple things, but was a retelling of a Guam story called Serena. This is before I was digital. It was all done in like watercolor, and this was way back in 2010. It was a self-published book, but it was it was written by her, rewritten, and illustrated by me. So this is way back in 2010, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, it was a
That's awesome. Yeah,
Guam legend called Serena.
Maybe you guys could get a booth, both get a booth, because they have like a whole section for like authors and stuff at Emerald City Comic-Con.
Nice.
Yeah, they have like a whole separate area that's just like writers and like authors and everything. It was funny. I was walking through at the end of Emerald City this last time, and this lady at one of the booths, she's like, hey, and I'm like, what? I'm like looking around. She goes, you have cauliflower ear. Come over here. And I come over. She goes, you do jiu-jitsu, don't you? And I go, yeah. And she goes, you got to wait here for my husband. He's an author, and he's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu.
Oh.
And so I met this dude who had a booth there that would just happen to be a author of
Nice.
this book, and he was a fellow jiu-jitsu guy. So we chatted for a bit.
Very cool.
Again, jiu-jitsu connecting, martial arts connecting all our worlds again, right?
Yeah, very cool.
Well, awesome, brother. Well, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask when is Emerald City? What is that?
Emerald City is generally like in March or April each year, and then Rose City Comic-Con is that one's down in Oregon, and that one's generally right around like September.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna pull it up just so we get our dates right, because you never know, man. Like, you get this book out and everything, and you might get some attention. They might want to bring you out.
Yeah, actually, our book, our first issue for the Taotawana story, it should be released in July, and I think that should be enough time for my co-writer to get that printed out and put out in San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, so the next Emerald City Comic-Con is going to be March. Looks like, what do we got here? Oh, they have the text so small. I have good eyes and I can't read this text. It's so small. I want to say it says March 6th through 9th of 2025 is when the next Emerald City is.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be some time. Get you out. Yeah. If you make it out, definitely let me know.
Yeah, for
definitely
sure.
come and support. I'm going to support regardless, though. You know, you're going to, once you get the book published and everything, like how widespread are you going to do the publishing? What's your goal as far as that?
Well, we're, like I said, we're publishing everything ourselves. We're printing everything ourselves. And hoping that the first issue, I guess, is going to kind of build more interest and hopefully get more eyes on it. But definitely I'll save a copy for you and send it off to you.
That's really what I was hinting at. I don't care if, you know, anybody else listening gets it. I just want to make sure I can support and buy a copy. But obviously, if you have somewhere that somebody can purchase it or anything, like, I want to make sure to share that with people. So, you know, we'll make sure to direct people to your social media. Where can people find you? Like, are you active mainly on Instagram, or do you have other outlets that people can follow you on? Make sure you share those so we can get you on the people's radar here.
Yeah, definitely. Instagram is where I'm most active, and that's at Heroesandheadkicks. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty active on it when I'm just, you know, relaxing at home. I'm typically just browsing, looking for artists and looking for inspiration, and, you know, trying to support, you know, friends, artists that are friends, you know. So that's pretty much where pretty much you can find me.
Perfect. So we'll keep it simple, and people can find him at Heroes and Head Kicks. I'll make sure to include that in the show notes for everybody, so they can just click on through and give you a follow, and that way they can see your announcement when the book is available, if there's anybody, you know, anywhere anybody can purchase and all of that. So, man, I know it's early there, and it's messing me up. And it's Saturday there, right? Saturday morning.
Friday there, right?
Yeah, it's like Friday at 3:09 p.m. here, and you're a time traveler, man. You're a day ahead of me.
Yeah, Guam is
no spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers.
Don't tell me what's gonna happen.
Yeah, but Guam is the tagline for Guam is where America's day begins. So, you know, it's Saturday here, Friday in the States. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you getting up bright and early there and spending a little bit of time with me today, and I hope to have you on in the future after the book comes out, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. Just I'm down to come by and talk, and yeah, let me know.
Sounds good. Well, everybody who's listening, give him a follow. I'm going to hit this outro. Want everybody to make sure to keep it nerdy. Just vibe with me a little bit here. I'm going to put these tunes on.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Par. You know, I've been asking all the people on here to break out some dance moves.
Oh,
Just
man.
like we're on a film set. You can't hear it, but, you know, you can come up with it in your mind.
Yeah, I don't dance. I can shadow box, but that's probably the most.
I don't dance either. I can move my shoulders a little bit, you know, the typical big guy dance.
Yeah.